Okay, I got most of the lights turned off here because I'm shooting my laser. I don't know if you can see it, I think. There's my laser up there. It's got a magnet mount on it. It's not very sturdy. Running on this 2x6 and then on that little piece of 1/8" strap steel. But anyway, what I'm doing, I'm shooting this at the frame edges. See that? See it wobbling around there? Boy, you have to be really, really still to get this thing to settle down. I mean, even just moving your pencil gets the whole boat rocking a little bit. If you're really still, you can get it accomplished. But anyway, I'm establishing a level point on each one of the frames. I'm going side to side, getting a level point. It doesn't really matter where on this top of the frame it is. I just need to get a level point established. And then, I can measure up from this point to wherever I need to put my my deck beam in there. So the laser level is turning out handy on that. I think I'd mentioned before that George drew this boat with a little bit of dip. And I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not. A little bit of dip in here. So if you can see this, there's a string here. Starts at this first frame in the main cabin in the salon. But if you can watch this line, sure, my display goes out. Watch this line. The tops of the frames dip down a little bit in the middle there. It's not real easy, but it's about 1.5 inches. And of course, it doesn't go all the way to the top there either. So, yeah. What do you do? The stern was aft cabin back there was shorter, so I ran a center line down the middle of the top up here above the frames and established the top of the arch, of the deck beams as a straight line, which I would like to do here too, but I'm not sure if I've got enough real estate to do that here or not, because that dip in the middle here, it dips down between fore and aft. It dips down a little bit. There's a good 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches. And I don't know if I got enough to pull that out, so I may just have to leave that in the way George drew it. But irregardless, now I've got all these points on the frames, marked, that are level to each other. Level to the world, level to each other. And if one's a little bit higher or lower than the other one, I can compensate for when I put the frames in, so the frames should all go in pretty much level. And I had a tripod set up earlier. It had a swivel head on it, so I could shoot down the center line here, and it was looking pretty good in terms of the top of the keel being in alignment, straight up and down. It's just not quite perfect, but I think it's close enough. I did actually level the boat just a little. Let me turn this off. I did actually level the boat a little bit last night. And if you look down there, of course there's no lights on, but I got a hydraulic jack going to a 4x6 beam up underneath there. And when I dropped a string down from a plumb bob from the center line here down to the keel, it wasn't quite perfect. It was back here in the far aft when I checked it, but it wasn't quite perfect here, so I compensated just a hair, 1/4 inch. Put a 1/4 inch shim under the supports on the starboard side, and that brought it right back into the middle again. Which, would that 1/4 inch have mattered? No, probably not. But I did it anyway. Putting a digital level on the bow too, it was showing a little bit of lean, and that helped by bringing this side up just a little bit. So I cut a little wedge to fit in there. That was a piece of scrap from my deck beams, and it's loose now, or more or less loose now. But there's the shims I put underneath there. You can see underneath here and over there. I cut those shims. And of course I released all these 2x4 supports also. It was a little nerve-wracking actually, because you don't know. You'd really hate to have the boat tip over on you. Would not be a good deal. I don't know if it would smash it all up at this point or not. It would certainly smash whatever was in its path. The workbenches and the side of the building would probably get blown out. And, yeah, so we didn't want that happening. So I try to be careful about that. Okay, anyway, so I got a level line on all the tops up there of the frames. So now I can start putting more deck beams in. And what I line them to height-wise, if I leave that dip in there or try to, I might try to bring that dip out, bring these center beams up as much as I can. But I'm going to have to make it a smooth transition regardless of what I do. You don't want one deck beam going up and the next one down and so forth. And of course you don't want them tilted one way or the other either, and that's the reason for the laser level up there now. But yeah, I ran into another situation too. Let me explain this. I decided I was getting to the point where I needed to put some water tanks in, or at least know what I want, figure out what I wanted to do for water tanks. And it would be nice to get the sole on the floor, so that when you're working in there, walking around in there, you got something decent to walk on. But to put the permanent sole in, which is the floor, the part you walk on, to put this permanent in, you need to get any tanks in down here. I wanted my water tanks in down here. I thought about building water tanks, and I mean, that's always an option, plywood and epoxy and fiberglass. But so much faster and easier just putting plastic tanks in, and cheaper. So I got to doing a bunch of measuring, and I found that I could get a couple of 46-gallon tanks in here, you know, sitting underneath here and in here. Well, I could get more than that actually. I could get one virtually in every one here. But then I could get a 65-gallon tank up here between 8 and 10. Well, 8 and 10 or 10 and 12. Anyway, I can fit a 65-gallon tank up here somewhere. Now, you don't want to get any closer to the bow with extra weight than you have to. I mean, you're going to have chain and windlass and all that jazz up there, which is bad enough. You really don't want to put a lot of weight up here. So it's not the best. A lot of boats do, though. A lot of boats have water tanks up in their under their V-berth. So it's not the end of the world. But I also need to get a gray water tank in here somewhere. And I might make the gray water tank that. I might just do it out of plywood and epoxy and glass. But we'll see. Anyway, so I ordered tanks. These two 46-gallon tanks to fit in here, and the 65-gallon tank to fit up there. And no sooner did I order those, and later that day, I get in here, and I get this first true deck beam installed where it's supposed to go, and lo and behold, I only have 6 feet of floor space, head space in there. And I'm 6'2" in shoes. So, you know, you got to lower the sole a couple inches here. That's really the only option. I mean, if I tried bringing the deck beam up there, that just exacerbates the problem of having that bow in the middle. So I don't really want to bring that deck beam in. It also then would make these side deck members out of whack. So you'd have a, you know, you don't want that. Because these are going to be where the pilot house sits in the middle here, and 2 feet on either side of the pilot house is your side decks to walk around the pilot house. So you don't want those on a different level than your deck beams. So it means I'm going to have to lower this. So in other words, I ordered those tanks, and now they won't fit in there properly if I lower the sole a couple inches. So the 65-gallon tank, of course, will work, and maybe I can get one of those other tanks still in here. I don't know. Once I get them, I'll try to dry fit them and see if they fit. If not, I'll find some other place for them. I'm sure I could probably fit one in the engine room, or a couple of them. I could actually put a really big one back here in the aft end somewhere, but really didn't want to do that. I could also put them back here in the aft cabin somewhere. Really didn't want to do that either. I mean, they're not going to be able to drop under the sole back here, obviously. But somewhere inside, and I could even put a big water tank back here, because I'm going to have this whole thing back here is going to be storage. That 4 feet, a little over 2 feet here, but that 4 feet up there, that's all going to be a lazarette or storage chamber, compartment, whatever. And I could easily fit those tanks back here too. But you hate to put that kind of weight above the water line, which is what it would be back here. You really want to keep it below the chine. But there's going to be a couple bunks in here. I could put them under the bunks. I really didn't want to do that either, but you could. But I'm going to see if I can get them stuffed in up here somewhere yet. I just have to see when I get the tanks what works and what doesn't. There's actually a little more room up here because the sole to the deck beams is greater in the forward part of this cabin, so it gets taller. The headspace gets taller in here as you go forward. But that would mean either putting another step in here, a step here somewhere, which you really don't want. See, everything's a compromise. Everything's a compromise. But the tanks, those water tanks, should be here later this week, and I'm going to try my best to get them stuffed under the sole here somewhere. And we'll just see how that goes. The bigger one will fit up here for sure. And I plan on putting a water maker in, so I really don't need that much. I know people that, cruise on with, 60 or 80 gallon water tanks, and that's it. But they have a water maker, of course. But I would like a little bit more than that, so we'll see what happens. But anyway, that's my update. I guess today is January 10th.